Welcome back. The Canadian government has announced the largest settlement in history with indigenous communities. It is offering compensation to hundreds of thousands of children and their families who were treated unfairly by the state. Sarah Wong reports.
History was made in Canada when officials joined representatives of indigenous communities to announce $31.5 million in compensation for those affected by a discriminatory child welfare system. Over 215,000 children who were removed from their homes since 1991 and placed in poorly funded foster care will be eligible.
This is the largest settlement in Canadian history. But no amount of money can reverse the harms experienced by First Nations children. However, historic injustices require historic reparations.
The settlement ends a long legal battle between Ottawa and the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society. The government had balked at a compensation amount after a tribunal ruled in favor of the First Nations Children's Services in 2016. Under the new agreement, half of the payout will go to reforming the system that has scarred and alienated indigenous communities for decades.
We have a long way to go to address the poverty in our nations, and no amount of money will ever be the right amount, nor will it bring back a childhood lost. But today is about acknowledgement, about being seen and heard.
The breakthrough comes after revelations last year about Canada trying to forcibly assimilate indigenous children in the previous century. At least 150,000 children were uprooted from their homes and taken to boarding schools, where abuses and violence were prevalent. There was international condemnation last year after the remains of hundreds of indigenous children were unearthed near the site of a former residential school. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
Violent protests have rocked Kazakhstan, leading to the declaration of a state of emergency in the biggest city, Almaty. Police used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse protesters who attacked government buildings. More than 200 people were arrested in Almaty and other cities. Despite being an oil producer, the Central Asian country wanted to lift price caps on fuel. That triggered widespread demonstrations, which forced the government to resign. U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to mark the first anniversary of the January 6th attack on the Capitol building, when supporters of his predecessor Donald Trump went on the rampage. 5 people died in the rioting that epitomized the sharpening of polarisation in American society. Sarah Wong reports.
The United States is preparing to mark the first anniversary of the storming of Capitol Hill by staunch supporters of former President Donald Trump. A Capitol police officer died defending the symbol of American democracy, and an Air Force veteran and fervent Trump fan was shot dead. The deadly chaos sent then Vice President Mike Pence and senators who were at the time certificating Joe Biden's electoral win against Trump scrambling to safety. Trump scrapped a planned speech at his Florida resort on the anniversary, but his successor is expected to mark the occasion.
The president is going to speak to the truth of what happened, not the lies that some have spread since, and the peril it has posed to the rule of law and our system of democratic governance. He will also mark that day, commemorate the heroes of January 6th, especially the brave men and women of law enforcement.
Former Capitol Police leaders were sacked after intelligence and security failures were blamed for the rampage. The new chief denied that there's any credible threat ahead of the anniversary.
No intelligence that indicates that that there would be any problems.
Meanwhile, the bipartisan January 6th House Committee closed in on Trump's confidants outside his administration, including television hosts at a conservative Fox News network. Trump himself refused to share his White House records with the investigators, who has asked the Supreme Court to intervene. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
Shares of China Huawei plunged when trading resumed in Hong Kong today after a 9-month suspension. The state-owned bad debt manager dropped 50% to close at a record low since its flotation 7 years ago. Huawei halted trading in its shares last April after failing to publish its 2020 report on time. In November, it said it would receive a cash injection of 42 billion yuan from a state consortium. The Hang Seng Index headed south today as the tech benchmark dropped almost 5% to sink to a fresh all-time low. Food delivery platform Meituan was among the biggest losers, dropping 11.2%. Bilibili slumped 10.6%. The video sharing website was one of 3 tech giants fined by Beijing regulators after their units failed to report deals properly. The other 2, Tencent and Alibaba, also lost ground. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng ended the day down 382 points. Over to the top 10 active stocks. Tencent was down $19.40. Alibaba down $2.40, while the tracker fund was down 40 cents. JD.com down $19, while BYD Company down $22.80. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro's at 8.82, pound sterling at 10.55, and the Australian dollar at 5.65. And finally, in Europe, the London FTSE is currently up by nearly 12 points. On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be mainly fine. Temperatures will range between 18 and 23 degrees. It will be cool in the morning and mainly fine in the next few days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good evening.